This program brought to you by Brewski's Bar and Grill, located in Utica, Minnesota. Your one-stop shop for delicious burgers, fries, pizzas, and more.
One, two, three, go.
1, 2, 3, go. Welcome to the Sports Wrap with George and Ringer, show number 5. Is that possible?
Really?
Can you believe this is the 5th show already?
No.
We're approaching that 8,000 shows we talked about last week. We're just getting there.
Right along.
It is October after all, and
it's
time we do these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about the Broncos from last week, because it was an interesting game, a 38-20 win over Mesabi East.
You know, halfway through that game, you asked me who is having the best game. And I mentioned something about Riley Larson, because indeed he was having a record-setting game. And then all of a sudden, I got a close look at exactly what Jay Saline put together. And, he had about 450 combined yards. And that's very difficult to do. And I'm not sure that I've seen that done before.
Those are special nights when you put those kind of numbers together. We'll throw them out for you. What I accumulated, what I calculated, 29 for 49.
29
so the 29 completions is 10 more than Jace has ever had, and who owned the school record. The 49 passes is 9 more than anybody's ever thrown in a ball game. So the Broncos definitely were throwing the ball around. And he threw it for 361 yards, which broke the record by more than 85 yards. And a lot of those records held by Gunnar Anderson prior to that. Riley Larson, we mentioned, had a huge night. He gets 16 catches. The school record was 10 catches for a game. He had 10 catches at halftime. And he goes for 220 yards, which put him a yard off of tying Derek Doughty for the all-time record of 221 yards that he had in a playoff game against Evelyn way back in 2000. The Broncos ran 83 plays, George,
yes,
in a regulation game. That's a phenomenal number.
Oh, my sheets will all fill up. I mean,
and so they're doing some things. They're making some numbers out there, and of course, somebody said to me, well, when those numbers happen in wins, that's more important than them coming in losses. Well, records are made and broken and whatever else in wins and losses. But this team right now sits at 3-2 on the season, and they seem to really like to play at home, George.
Well, they do, and I'm not sure just exactly what that's going to do for our field tomorrow, but I'm going to tell you right now, these guys play good, exciting football, and it wasn't just Riley that was getting catches. Jermaine was getting catches. Everybody was getting catches.
Schultz was getting catches. Sorry did some good work across the middle.
It was.
And the thing that I see with this team about playing at home, they seem to have an extra gear to be able to play at home. And you mentioned the field last week. The field was marginal, I would say, especially on the sidelines. Of course, with the weather we've had, it's only gotten worse. They didn't play any games on it this week, but the field is wet. I was just before we taped the show. I left school. The kids were all practicing, and they were practicing towards the arena, because that was really, I think, the only place that they hadn't practiced all week, to try to find a place that find somewhat dry, and I don't think dry is even possible, but to find a place that wasn't completely mud where they could get some footing. And it's a concern for tomorrow's game. There's a chance for rain for Friday's game against a Two Harbors team that's 3-2, and they run the old double wing, what we saw what Moose Lake used to run. And so in my mind, that's a mudder's game right there. You want to come run double wing, that's what you do in the mud. But Two Harbors likes to throw the ball some.
Well, they do, but I'll tell you right now, if you take away their running game, just like Mesabi East, and I have to say this, the defense controlled their rush right from the get-go. And with some pretty good guys that could rush, and they're going to have to repeat that against Two Harbors. But if they stop the run game, they have a good opportunity to win a game.
I think the big thing, Two Harbors has less down linemen. Mesabi East came with 4 down linemen. They blitzed some, but maybe not as much as we're going to see with Two Harbors, who maybe going to run a 3-man line and start rushing off the edge.
Yeah.
which the Broncos had a little trouble with against Moose Lake with a little wide rusher. So they've got some things that they've got to work on. Talking with Coach Seth Edestead on Thursday morning when we tape the pregame interview that is going to show before the game on Friday night on KCC TV, and hopefully people will, if they don't want to come out and sit in the cold and the rain, hopefully you come along with us on kcc-tv.org or on Channel 7. And but you'll hear him say we've got some things that we hope can counteract what Two Harbors likes to do, and so it's going to be a little bit of a chess match, which is what we love about the game.
Well, that's right, and Tom Nelson's bringing up basically his whole backfield, but he had some horses in the line last year that have graduated, and I'm not sure that he's been able to replace that. They have only 6 juniors, and they don't have a whole lot of seniors, so they're going to rely on underclassmen. But they do have some kids that showed some promise there. I've been watching their film here for a while, but keep in mind, they beat Esco. Esco beat Moose Lake Willow River. It must have been a heck of a game last weekend there. But you know, these teams are all capable of beating one another, and I think we're in that mix as well.
And I think the big thing from what Coach Edestead told me about Two Harbors' offense, their quarterback is very mobile, and he is not afraid to run the ball. And we know, from what we've watched through the first 5 games, we know how well Jay Saline has done at the quarterback position and scrambling and doing those things. That is something that Two Harbors also has, is a very athletic quarterback. And I even asked him, you got a spy on him? I mean, you got somebody mirroring him? And he said, yeah, we have the plans to have somebody basically there to spy on him. And when it looks like he's going to go, then we're going to mirror him and try to, hopefully we can catch him before he gets out in the open.
Well, as you recall, they had a running back last year, Sam Bam Johnson, but they ran him at fullback. This year they're running him at wing, and he's leading some pretty good blocking, and when he carries the ball, he wants to be a punishing runner. He's the runner that they're going to have to take the edge from, and you know, if he gets going, he can hurt you.
The Broncos haven't defeated Two Harbors since 2007. The playoffs in 2007, the Broncos have lost 11 straight times to Two Harbors. It's a run that is, well, the Broncos had done it to Two Harbors for a while. The Broncos were 26-2 all time against Two Harbors prior to this 11-0 run. So now 26-13, and to see the Broncos come up with a win against Two Harbors, I think would give a little swagger, a lot more confidence for this team, just because of what has happened with Two Harbors, that they've run off this number of wins.
Well, you know, and it's the other thing is Two Harbors can do that most of the teams they can kick. They got a kicker, and so you know you see this. Most of the teams struggle, even good ones struggle with their kicking game, and Two Harbors has a kid that can put the boot to it. So, but I mean, I just look right now. These are 2 close teams. It should be a really good game. Yeah, unless something, the turnover margin is great or something like that, I think you're going to see a very competitive game, a very close game. We said that last week. I thought it might be a one-score game, but give the Broncos credit. They had the passing game going and were able to outdistance Mesabi East. And frankly, I thought they made Mesabi East look not as good as they did the first week when I saw Mesabi East against Rush City. But at the same time, they had changed. When I watched them against Two Harbor or against Rush City, Mesabi East ran I-backs. They ran a little split back, no spread out, no whatever, and they ran very little of that on Friday night against the Broncos. So they kind of changed their colors and changed their stripes on what kind of offensive team they wanted to be. No, I agree, but I always thought that a strength of the Broncos last year and this year was team speed. And overall team speed, I thought they exhibited more of that than Mesabi. They just couldn't get outside because they weren't quick enough. And I talked about Mesabi East. If you watch the game, the first few plays, jet sweep one way, jet sweep the other way, jet sweep back. 3 of the first 5 plays, I think, were jets, and they got big plays, and they fumbled once, which was unfortunate for them. And then they went away from it and never really came back to it. And I'm just kind of like,
Wow, you got a play that's working like that, especially with Cole Meyer, the kid that was running the ball. That made me question what they were doing.
Yeah.
Whoever was calling the plays lost sight of something that was pretty good, and that was to the benefit of the Broncos.
Well, and I think what happened is that, and I said this a couple of times, the Broncos have them back on their heels. And early in the first quarter, after they scored the one touchdown, they did. They put them on the heels, and they were really never able to get anything going again that first quarter.
The Broncos played in a mosh pit of mud last year at Two Harbors.
Yes.
It's going to be more mud this year. And, of course, those of you that are old and remember back to 2004, the playoff game in 2004 it's not going to be anything, I don't think, that muddy, that crazy. But Two Harbors and the Broncos have played a couple of games like that. The Broncos were able to shut down Two Harbors' run last year.
Yes, they
were.
were.
I didn't know, even with that great offensive line, which I didn't think teams could do. If the Broncos can do that and force Two Harbors into throwing the ball more than they want to, give the Broncos an edge, give them an advantage in winning that game.
Well, like I say, the playing conditions, the field conditions, that was the last game they played on that field that season, was just incredible. I don't think the playing conditions are going to be that hard. I think that if we can have an afternoon, I heard maybe even some sunshine, dry it off a little bit, maybe it'll happen, but it's going to be messy.
Is the rain going to hold off until we get done with our game tomorrow night? Because I've been looking that we might get some rain tomorrow night.
And so, so we got to put a top on.
Very good. Let's talk about girls cross country and boys cross country before we talk more football, because I want to make sure we get the Broncos in. I want to say congratulations to the girls cross country team. They took their first place at a meet on Tuesday, this time up in Ely, and congratulations to the ladies. They won down at Hibbing a couple of weeks ago. They win in Ely. So something's going on there. Coach Jelly has found a mixture to win some meets, and of course the Heil Pike is coming up this coming Tuesday, and we would love to see everybody out there to support the team. And we talked last week about Ava Hill from Mesabi East to get a chance to come out.
There was an article in the paper about her today, and just she's a 4+1 student. So how you get better than an A+, I don't know, but she works it out.
Yeah. Amongst all the other.
She's an outstanding runner, and you're not going to see her like every year. She's amazing. And
Gino Urban, we talked about him last week on the show. He'll be there as well with Greenway. And come out and watch the kids. Junior high races start at about 4 and 4:25. Varsity races about 4:55 and 5:25. So by 6 o'clock, this thing's in the books. You get out there by 4:30. If you get out there too much after that, you're going to have to walk a long ways out at the River Golf Course. But come on out, support the kids. It's the only home meet of the year. And, of course, cross country's wrapping up in 3 weeks from tonight. The cross country season is going to be over for a lot of kids because that's when the section meet is. And it's hard to believe we're already thinking playoffs. The Broncos could have their first playoff game in the books within 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The volleyball team will have their first playoff games in the books as well in 3 weeks. So the fall season's starting to come to an end, and winter season's right around the corner because, I know Eli starts hockey practice on Tuesday, and I'm just like, woo! That's coming along, but good job to both cross-country teams, but the girls have something special going on.
Paul Jelly really puts those girls together, and he does it year in and year out, and been doing it for a long time.
We were, I believe it's 25 years, I believe this season is his 25th season, and I don't know how much longer Paul will be doing it. I know that he's thinking about retiring from teaching, and so at the same time, will he retire from coaching? And I asked him point blank, are you going to quit coaching if you quit teaching? And he kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
That tells you that he's still loving it, so that's a good thing.
He does not make impulsive decisions, I know that.
Let's go back to last Saturday, Bemidji and UMD. You got to see a game in the first half that was very tight, and then UMD just blew them out in the second.
Well, it was 7-7, and I knew it was going to be a tight game, and Bemidji put up a really good defensive struggle up, and I thought, well, let's see what happens. Second half, they come out. Bemidji had a punt. UMD blocks the punt, runs it in for a touchdown. They kick off. Bemidji gets the ball. They 3 and out. They punt the ball down to about the 10-yard line. UMD drops back in a beautiful flea flicker. I haven't seen one. And they catch this kid on an 80-yard touchdown pass. they're down 2. About 4 or 5 minutes later, UMD gets a pick 6, and they're up by 3 touchdowns. So all of a sudden, a very, very tight game just expanded.
I read in the Minneapolis paper on Sunday, the Bemidji State head coach said this: we hold them to 1 for 12 on 3rd downs. They were 1 for 8 on 4th down, and I don't remember, he had one other stat in there, and he said, and we lost by 35 points.
Yes,
he says,
was stunned.
It was big play after big play for UMD. He says, how do you look at the stats, and he says, there's no reason why we should have lost that game from a few stats perspective. He said, but we lost by 35, and that's how the game goes sometimes.
Well, it is, and it really comes back down to, the defense. They had to hold Bemidji down because Bemidji had a very fine backfield. They get this young kid, this Fry. He doesn't run. He's a blur. I just say he's got jets, and he ran for 125 yards or thereabouts. And he was giving UMD fits, but he just couldn't do it all by himself. And the UMD defense started picking it up. Most of the defensive guys come from offensive teams. So the one that got the pick 6, he's an old running back, and the other guy that blocked the punt, he was an old running back. And so these guys really put it together. Now, John Larson had himself another fine game, but he was 12 for 23. But he did get 153 yards and 2 touchdowns and ran for another 40 or 45 yards. He's just a very outstanding quarterback, but you could see that the linebackers were real focused on him.
Sure.
This weekend.
I'll tell you what, George, and I'm being dead serious about this. If I did not have hockey tickets for Saturday night at UMD, you and I would be doing the football game on Friday night, and then early Saturday morning we would be hauling butt to get to Mankato to watch this football game between UMD and Mankato State Saturday afternoon. I don't know if we'd have gotten a ticket or whatever, or if we'd had to go like break in through the fences or something, but we would have been in Mankato to watch this football game because this is going to be a dandy game. Now, somebody might blow one of the other teams out. Well, maybe Mankato's better than we think, but I think it's going to be a heck of a ball game, and I'm disappointed that we're going to miss it.
Mankato has 28 consecutive conference wins.
UMD has how many consecutive?
They've only lost 1 to Mankato last year at UMD.
Yeah.
So no, this is going to be a dandy game. I feel real bad, and I don't think it's going to be on TV, which I find upsetting. And Tommy Hansen and
your good friend,
my good friend Vinny Repish, they're going to be upset by this. But
yeah, we'll have to pull it in on the radio, and
yes.
that's the way we'll have to do it. But good luck to the Dogs. How about your Army Knights?
It's homecoming at West Point this weekend, and they've got Tulane coming in. Tulane's has been a fairly successful team. They lost some from last year, but they can give Army a good game. Everybody takes a look at Army's offense and thinks all you got to do is stuff the fullback, and all of a sudden they only get 2 yards and maybe 1, and then 4. And then 2. Well, yeah, but that's 4th down. Yeah, they go for that a lot. It's just you really, really have to be aware of line play when they're playing against these guys. So if they can hold them up for a half, I think after that, Army's going to take over. I just think the rest of the season for Army, if they play half as good as they can, and right now they're on the 3rd-string quarterback. The other 2 have gotten hurt, but I think Kevin Hopkins is coming back, and he's the starter, and he's one of the finest option quarterbacks in the country, and so I'm looking forward to the game. Starts at 11, and I will be watching. Yeah.
Of course you will. Some other games on the college slate. Number 4 Ohio State showed Nebraska where the woodshed was last week. This week they get number 25 Michigan State, and when I read that, I'm like, Michigan State's the number 25 team in the nation. Because
I was kind of surprised too.
I watched them against Northwestern a little bit a couple weeks ago, and I was just kind of like, okay, maybe they're 25. I don't know, but I think they're a little overrated. Ohio State, that's a 6:30 game on ABC. Ohio State gets to play on ABC 2 weeks in a row. The ABC must be searching for a good game. It's probably the best they can do because, of course, CBS gets the biggie, in my mind, for the week. They get Auburn at Florida for a 2:30 game on Saturday afternoon.
That's the game of the weekend, I think. That's, Auburn and Florida don't like each other, and they
do any of those teams in the SEC like each other?
No, they don't. And so they're both of them want to be considered in the top 5, and they want to get a bid, and both teams are capable of doing it.
I think this ends up being a very one-sided contest in favor of Auburn. Florida has no business being on the same field as Auburn, and I think it's going to be a 2 to 3 touchdown.
Keep in mind his quarterback, true freshman Bo Nix, and he's as fun as any young quarterback you've seen play. Bo Nix might just chop him up. Yeah.
Of course, there's another big one in the Big Ten. Iowa's at Michigan. Iowa's ranked 14th in the nation this week. Lots of talk about how good Iowa is. I'm still not sold on them. I was not sold on Michigan a couple weeks ago. I'm still not sold on Wisconsin, even though they keep going and doing the things that they do. And maybe it's just because I don't like Wisconsin and Iowa that I think
they fell apart at the end of last year, and you figure maybe they'll do that the same. Yeah. They don't seem to be showing any of that, but anytime Minnesota can get the axe, we're real happy, But Michigan's got to play this game in Iowa, and that is no freebie there. And so I think that Iowa just might pull the upset here.
They could, and of course the Gophers hung on, and we're still waiting for them to run the ball like we think they can. But I think just like the Vikings last week, the Chicago Bears decided, screw you, you are not going to run the football on us. You are not going to run the football on us. And so I think teams have looked at the Gophers in the same light. You are not going to run the football on us. We're going to bring an extra defender into the box, and you are going to have to make a quarterback beat us. Well, Mr. Morgan didn't do too bad last week.
21 for 22.
21 for 22 is pretty good, George.
In the paper it said near perfect.
Yeah.
And and for 4 touches, 396 yards. No, I squawk all the time about the running game, and Tanner Morgan's chopping me all up on that. So is Chase Saline.
Yeah.
So these guys are tossing the ball, and they're doing it effectively, and I love to see it.
And so the Gophers have homecoming this week. Will they have their heads up their heinies, or are they going to improve to 5-0?
The first Gopher game I ever went to was 1960. I went to the Gopher homecoming game. They were playing Illinois, and they said, and the motto was, "Boil Illinois." and they're going to boil Illinois again, and it's just they got a full stable of running backs. They've got incredible receivers right now.
And we might remember what Illinois did to them last year.
Yes,
they hung a 66 on them or something. I can't remember the number. It was almost 700 yards of offense. I think the Gophers come out big and win big. Maybe the big thing of the week, both Alabama and Clemson are off. The big college fans have to be disappointed about that. Although I will say Alabama overtook Clemson as the number 1 team. Clemson was a little shaky last week. They got their wake-up call.
Yes, they did. They went right in and barely pulled that one out. And not that
North Carolina's a bad team.
No,
don't get us wrong here. No. But that's probably the one game that Clemson needed to wake them up. Oh, everything's going good. We're the number 1 team. Blah blah blah. We're national champs. Okay, you just had to pull one out in the final seconds to maintain things, and so Clemson will continue to roll the rest of the way through and find themselves in the Final Four. I feel that confident about that team.
Well, and one other point I want to bring up, not to change the subject, North Dakota. They went to Eastern Wisconsin last Saturday.
Washington?
Eastern Washington, and they got chopped up pretty good. in a blizzard. And so on the 28th of September, and they're playing in a blizzard, and they wound up getting beat 35-20, but I think that happens when they go out to Washington.
Yeah, that kind of stuff in the mountains can happen.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad that it didn't happen here because they definitely were talking about that chance. What else on the college football scene?
You know, this is really kind of off a little bit, but Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill last week that is going to allow college students and their agents to make money from their endorsements. And, you know, this...
How do you feel about that?
Well, this is what somebody said down here. This will toss out the age-old rule that students, athletes should not be paid beyond the cost of attending the university. And I have to have a little bit of a wonder with that because somebody's making some money off of this somewhere, and whether or not it should go directly to the student or to some other circumstance, I'm not sure just how much the NCAA or the colleges should be making off the kid, and whether or not, you know, if we live in a capitalistic system and old number 7 is the most popular man on campus, everybody's wearing his jersey, I'm not sure I have a problem with that. But this won't take effect till 2023, and the NCAA and the Pac-12 are lobbying very strongly against this.
Yeah, this isn't over yet. There's going to be lots of things to be hammered out in the next 3+ years. I still like to live by the old rules, but the old rules aren't where we're at anymore. There's so much money being played around. I think the kids should be able to get something to be able for what they're doing. I think the first person that I think about is Tim Tebow. What he did at Florida a few years back, and how many 15 Florida jerseys were out there. Did he deserve a cut of that? Yeah, I think there's probably a little bit to that. But I also worry about how much they could be making, and all of a sudden there seems to be, I know there's lots of underhanded stuff going on the way it is. Is there going to be more underhanded stuff going on this way? Maybe there'll be less. People, that's why they're saying, well, these guys are getting paid. Now they won't need the boosters and everything else to be throwing the car their way or giving them that extra job. So it's going to be an interesting thing. I don't think it's going to play out smoothly, but it is going to have to play out. So, you want to talk about that Vikings game on Sunday at all?
Yes, I do.
Let it rip.
I've
talked way too much about it this week with my coworkers.
I just have 2 words. Khalil Mack. I saw them trying to double team him. I saw them try to triple team him. I saw him grab a guy from behind and pull him one direction while the guy in front, he was pulling in another direction. He had an amazing football game, and I think he set the tone for the Bear defense, and that's what shut down the Vikes. Although the Vikings came back and played pretty well second half, and they could have won that game.
Yeah, they still had a chance to win it. That's maybe the more interesting part. Everybody wants to throw Kirk Cousins under the bus.
Oh, I'm not sure of that.
He's been thrown there, and I think it's unfounded. I think it's unfair. Every quarterback's going to miss some passes when the offensive line did have some protection.
Right.
But I will say this, in my mind, Chicago came out and didn't literally punch us in the mouth, but that's what we talk about as football coaches. Who's going to come out and hit the other team the hardest, harder than the other team? And Chicago came out and put a little slobber knocker on us, and we didn't respond the way that we needed to respond. There was a couple of plays where there were just guys getting rocked, and they put us on alert. I think they did some things. Chicago came out and said, you're not going to run the football. And I think either our head coach or our offensive coordinator or our offensive guru sat in there and said, no, we're going to run the football. We're going to run the football. And Chicago said, no, you're not. You're going to have to make Kirk Cousins beat us. And now we've got Stephon Diggs asking for a trade. You got Thielen ticked off. And I can understand a little bit why they're ticked off, because you had coaches who are veteran coaches. These aren't new coaches. These are veteran coaches who supposedly know what they're doing and basically said, we're going to dig our heels in. We ran the ball the last 3 weeks, and that's what we're going to do again. And they waited until late third quarter, early fourth quarter to release the Hounds and let Kirk Cousins start doing some of the things that he can do. In the fourth quarter, I think Kirk Cousins was 10 for 13 on the one drive and took care of business, and people are like, well, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not worth $84 million. As I told somebody today, okay, is it his fault that the Vikings gave him $84 million? Does he have to do more than whatever expected because maybe they only should have paid him $62 million or whatever? What I'm saying, guys, is this. Kirk Cousins, of course, has to accept as much blame as anybody else, but the five guys standing in front of him and the coaches who are calling the plays, and I'm not sure Kirk Cousins has the carte blanche like Tom Brady or some of these other quarterbacks to change the play at the line of scrimmage. I don't know if Mike Zimmer says, yep, you can do that. When he calls a running play, I want the ball run. And I don't know if Kirk Cousins can go check, 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 check. I want to go pass play. He can check maybe in a pass play to a different pass play or a run play to a different run play. But I don't know if he has the right, like Tom Brady does, to say, this run play is not going to work. I get to check to a pass.
No,
I'm not sure that happens.
Tom Brady took a long time for him to get there. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, everybody thinks Tom Brady's been doing it since, ever.
No, that's not
and he's
true.
done it for a long time, but he's also 42 years old. So
that's exactly right. No,
or 41 or whatever he is.
I can't but think that he has all the tools to play football in that league, and they're going to have some patience with him. Besides, he doesn't call the plays. They got a coordinator for that.
And the thing is, this is essentially a new offense. So all the bells and whistles that Tom Brady maybe has been working with, and this is the name that keeps being thrown at me. Well, what about Tom Brady? What about Tom Brady? Well, Kirk Cousins isn't Tom Brady. There's only one Tom Brady. And frankly, when somebody says, well, he doesn't make as much money as Kirk Cousins, that's because he's getting his money spread out over this many years because he's taking less money per year so he can have some teammates. So you can't compare Kirk Cousins to Tom Brady. It's not fair. It's not the way that it works, and we shouldn't be doing it. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. Is he a great quarterback? I'm not sure about that, but he's a good quarterback, and not every team in a 32-team league is going to have a great quarterback, and there's just few of those and few and far between. And the Vikings are going to be okay. Yes, they're 2-2. They're okay. Let's not throw them out. There's a quarter of the season only played. There's 3 quarters left. This team has the capabilities if everybody gets on the same page. And the offensive line, and I blame the offensive line. I'm doing it. If the offensive line starts getting their act together, this can be a very good football team.
Oh, I agree. They have all the tools, and they have Dalvin Cook. And
they have Dalvin Cook, and I don't know how injured he is. I was concerned when he went out, but you got to respect him for being able to come back out on the field and saying, I'm going to suck it up and do what I can.
And you know what? I also saw C.J. Hams play a pretty good game the other day. He's blocking well. He's catching passes. He's doing everything that they're asking of him.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I think it does come down, in my mind, to the offense coordinators deciding that, look, we do have to, when teams are taking things away from us, we have to take advantage of what they're giving us.
That's a fact.
That's what it is. Well, what do you want to talk about next?
We got the Minnesota Twins.
You'd like to talk about the Minnesota Twins?
We can just sketch it like Barrios going to start.
I don't know who's going to start. I haven't. I'll be honest with you. I haven't looked ahead enough to see if there's going to be Barrios or Odorizzi, or if they're going to go with the old. Let's just throw somebody out there for 3 innings, and what he gives us, and if we can bring him back in 3 days, we can bring him back in 3 days. I think that's what we're going to see. I don't think we're going to see a true starting pitcher in the sense that we're going to expect us Barrios or even Odorizzi to go 6, 7, 8 innings. If we get 3 good innings out of Odorizzi, and it looks like he might be we're going to yank him. I think there's going to be a short hook. We're going to say, look, we got our bullpen. We're going to bring him in. We're going to do a couple innings. We got Kyle Gibson, who's been a starter, who will not start a game unless there's an injury or something else goes on. He's going to be one of those guys that's going to come in long relief. This isn't the old days when you put Jack Morris on the hill and you said, well, he's going to go 9 innings today.
Or 10, or whatever.
10, yeah. We're not going to see that. And
did you catch Strasburg's performance the other night with Washington?
No. Did Strasburg come in late in the game?
Late in the game.
Okay, I did not get to watch that part of the game.
He came in for 3 innings and threw BBs, and for a moment, he was the best pitcher in the league. He was amazing. But for them to come in there and pull him in as a reliever and shut
that's why I say
down,
it's a different
game.
It's a different game, and the pitching isn't going to be the way it is. The Twins play Friday, Saturday in New York. They at least get to come home for Monday. If they manage to get one of those games, they'll play Tuesday, and then Thursday. It's just a 5-game series, and of course they start Friday night. And of course I knew they were going to have to play they were going to have New York in prime time, so we weren't going to, with the Viking, with the Twins game and the Bronco game, we weren't going to get to watch, so we'll be doing a little watching on our phones while we're doing the Bronco game.
A lot of people will be channel flipping.
Well, let's hope that they put our broadcast maybe on their computer or their phone, and they can have the Twins, or vice versa, so they don't have to be flipping back and forth, so they can watch both. That's the great thing about technology. I don't know if I'm going with my heart on this, but the jinx that the Twins have against the Yankees has to come to an end
sooner or later.
Sooner or later, just like everything else, it has to come back the other way. I'd like to think that the Twins come in with not as much pressure on themselves. I understand they're division champs, but they got to go in and play loose like they did all year.
Well,
and that's the thing that concerns me. If they come in and play too tight, then what's happened before is going to happen again.
There's some good teams. 4 teams won 100 games or more this year. And that's never happened before. And also, the other, one of the note I had down there, Pete Alonso of the Mets, I believe, 53 home runs his rookie year, and that broke Aaron Judge's 2017. And you take a look, we're pretty proud of the kids that hit dingers around, and I mean, I think Nelson Cruz is as much fun to watch as Jim Toomey ever was. I mean, these guys are extraordinary.
Absolutely.
But this young kid, 52 home runs. He's 24 years old. Good for him.
Yeah.
Baseball's still there.
Yeah, baseball's still there, and the Twins hit 307 home runs. The Yankees hit 306. You're going to see some home runs. I think you're going to see some high-scoring games. I think if it gets to be 9-2 in the 4th inning and the Twins are down or the Yankees are down, the game isn't over.
No.
And I think that's the big thing that you got to understand is this game on Friday night starts at 6:07. When we get done with our football game at 9:45 and we pack up and we get everything put away, I think we're still going to get to watch the end of that. We're going to get to see the end of that baseball game, possibly, because it's going to be a 4-hour game with the longer commercials, the pitching changes, everything being scrutinized. So just get ready for 4-hour games, folks. That's the way it's going to be. In the NL, Washington is at Los Angeles. Los Angeles, the class of the NL record-wise, I think they get a win there. St. Louis at Atlanta. I know Jay Bartkowski, our sponsor over here, might not be happy with me, but I'm taking Atlanta over St. Louis in that series. So set Atlanta and LA against each other in a week and a half or so. And on the other side, I'm going to take Houston and I'm going to take Minnesota. I'm going to go out there. Like I said, I'm probably going with my heart rather than my head a little bit, but it has to change.
Well, and I got to agree with just about everything there. But my guru down in Minneapolis, if I said I was going with Atlanta over his beloved Cardinals, I mean, this guy, we took him to Busch Stadium a few years ago in 100-degree heat for him to watch his beloved Cardinals. I don't know. Anyway, the Cardinals they've been battling hard all year long, and from the get-go, I thought there's no way that they're going to do this, and they always find a way.
They found a way. You're right about that. And Washington the same way. Very poor record. And of course, Milwaukee unfortunately loses to the Nationals. But Milwaukee, I think, what did I see? 20-5 they went in September.
And they lost their best ball player earlier this season.
And they lost their best player, and that definitely had an effect. But just think, they went 20-5 most of the month without their best player. They played their best baseball, and it would have been scary to see the Brewers going to LA. Not that Washington doesn't have every right to be there. They've got great starting pitching. You've talked about that, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
It will.
Wild opened their season tonight at Nashville, and I was reading the Star Tribune earlier today, and they were we talked about this last week about the start of the season. The Wild play 13 of their first 16 games on the road, and through the first 2 months, it's a crazy number. And I just wonder what the HE double toothpicks, the NHL was thinking on putting a team on the road
that many days,
that much. In the first 2 months, I almost feel like they are setting the Wild up to fail.
Aren't you welcoming injuries when you do that? I mean, these guys got to get a break once in a while.
Yeah, it's something wrong, and I mean, some people say, well, geez, then they get to play that much more games at home. Well, sometimes when you have to overcome that much adversity early in the season, and we can talk about the St. Louis Blues having to come over adversity. Remember, on January, I think 31st last year, the St. Louis Blues were in last place, not in the West, in the whole NHL point-wise,
yes,
and they won the Stanley Cup. They found a way. They got a goaltender in, and things happen. So hockey can be a funny game that way. But the Wild start at Nashville tonight. They go to Colorado on Saturday. Two of the better teams in the Central Division. We'll find out early whether the Wild have, with their new changes, new GM, the new players in. Dumba's back. I hope that's a great sign for the Wild on the defensive line. Suter sounds like he's healthy, so let's see what this team can do. I know a lot of people aren't expecting a lot, so let's see. Let's see what happens. Some people have said the Wild need to bottom out, and they didn't reach the bottom last year. Maybe this year, if they bottom out, maybe they get a top 1, 2, 3 pick, and they get a superstar next year, and maybe they bring this guy in from Russia, and all of a sudden maybe the Wild can make a turn. So if the Wild don't go gangbusters this year, and they can get a good player come next June, I'd be okay with that. So,
yes.
UND men's hockey, I mentioned that just briefly. That's why we can't go to the Mankato football game on Saturday. The Bulldogs, the two-time defending national champions, start with an exhibition game against the University of Alberta on Saturday night. I will be there to cheer on the Dogs, and then they get their season started the following week. And we talk about being the champion and the expectations. What is it like? What are the expectations when you come back as the two-time defending national champion?
Well, yeah, and they come back strong. I mean, they still have a pretty good team, and they lost a few last year, but everybody says, well, they can't possibly do that, and I'm saying, au contraire, they can possibly do that, and it'd be really exciting for Duluth hockey if they can.
Yeah, and I think it would be. They're going to have the target on their back all year. They're going to get the best from each team every week, and that's tough to overcome. But if they can stay injury-free, and I talk about like Perunovich last year, who was not healthy all year long, that team was able to overcome that. If they stay healthy, this team will be lethal again.
They will.
It's kind of scary. All right, so what have you been listening to or reading in the Solarium this week?
Oh,
I had somebody say that's my favorite part of the show when George talks about not the sports stuff, when he talks about what's been going on in the Solarium. So,
I'm going to sneak down to Minneapolis on Monday, and we're going to go to a show at the State Theater, and we're going to go see a favorite old rock and roll group, Little Feat. And so, but it's a 1,500 seat theater, and this is really up close, and they'll be bang.
So you're preparing yourself.
I have been listening to Little Feat for 2 or 3 days, and Sue finally came up and she says, "I'm in the basement. I hear you're listening to your Little Feat records." But there's a tune called "Fat Man in the Bathtub with the Blues." I kind of took that as my own, so I've been doing Little Feat. I'm reading a couple of books about actually what brought on the Civil War, and this is Clay.
It's not a simple answer.
Clay, Calhoun, and Webster, and all the characters in mid-century. And when you read this and you read the speeches that they give in Congress, it's right there. All you got to do is watch TV. It really hasn't changed that much. So yeah, I've been biting off history and listening to Little Feat. I know I'm going to have a good time Monday. These guys have been around for a long time. When I was a number of years ago, I saw them at the Playboy Jazz Festival, and I got a backstage pass, and I was able to high-five the whole band as they walked off the stage. They did the finale. I was on top of the world that day. And and so I don't know if that'll happen, but we're really looking forward to going down and listening to music.
We hope you've been enjoying the show. We've had a lot of positive comments. We're going to keep doing it. This is show 5, and if you're going to be watching if this is on right before the Bronco game, stay tuned. The Broncos and the Two Harbors Agates coming up momentarily.
Next week, I promised to do a synopsis of Gopher basketball. It's going to start in about 20 days, and so I got my guru working on it.
So I should do some work.
Well, all you have to do is ask me a couple of questions. I'm sure
And
I'll have
you'll
all
go.
the answers.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
This program brought to you by Brewski's Bar and Grill, located in Utica, Minnesota. Your one-stop shop for delicious burgers, fries, pizzas, and more.